Welcome to the Hollis Chapman Show, where we celebrate the power of words and the beauty of storytelling. Join us on this journey as we delve into the minds of successful authors and small business owners who have mastered the art of crafting captivating narratives that inspire, educate, and entertain. Prepare to be inspired as we explore the boundless possibilities that come from sharing stories and experiences that shape our lives and ignite our passions. Through heartfelt conversations and insightful discussions, we uncover the wisdom and creativity that fuel these incredible individuals in their pursuit of greatness. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let the magic of storytelling transport you to new worlds and perspectives. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and uplifted as we embark on this storytelling journey together. Stay tuned for an episode filled with wisdom, inspiration, and the power of words. Welcome to the Hollis Chapman Show. Say where stories come alive. Let's begin this adventure together. Don't miss out on the opportunity to connect with some of the most talented and compelling voices in literature today. Tune in and let the journey begin.
Hello and welcome to the Hollis Chapman Show. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Very excited to have you here. We got a wonderful guest here, and I'm very excited. You know why? Here in Tempe, Arizona, it's raining. I love it. So we're all excited about that. Our special guest today is a best-selling author who writes award-winning stories that are splashed with humor, mystery, romance, supernatural. USA Today best-selling author Ann Charles. Welcome, Ann.
Hi, thank you. And I'm just northwest of you, so
Okay.
I'm waiting. I can see the clouds on the horizon, so send it our way. We need it.
All right. Tell us a bit more about yourself. Tell us more about yourself.
Sorry. Okay, so Ann Charles, I've been publishing since 2011. I've been writing since the 1900s. And I'm working, this book that came out last, Chewed Up by the Jungle, was my 39th book published. So for some, that's not many. For others, that's a lot. I'm somewhere in the middle. It seems like a lot of years to me. But this is the third book in my dig site, adventure, mystery, supernatural with a splash of romance series. And I'm really excited about having this book out there and sharing the new adventures with readers who enjoy this mix of genres.
You know, before we get deep dive into the questions, 39 books. That's what I just realized that. How do you keep motivated? What keeps you motivated? What keeps you going? Because it's a very isolating thing being a writer.
Yeah, it's so isolating. I have just finished my 40th. I'm now about to spend a full week buried just editing and going through the whole big monster, and before I send it off to my editor. And so I can tell you that for one thing, I don't remember the month of July, let alone June, because it's all been, me hitting 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 words a day on the page to try to, keep the story going and wrap things up. So motivation-wise, it's, the tough part is always at the beginning because you're setting up the story. It's slower. It takes longer. You're not as into it yet. But once I hit the midpoint, it's like a downward slide. And I can't wait to see what happens. And that fuels me every day to sit down at the computer and tell the story. And then when I hit the end, like where I am now, then I'm happy because for one thing, I can take a little break, stretch my shoulders. And for another, I can't wait to share this with readers who love the stories and love the series. So put that together with, of course, this is what I do for a living. So financially, there's always motivation there to keep going. And the emails I get, like I just received a wonderful one from someone who has a book club, and she introduced one of my stories to him, and now she said, you have a bunch of new fans, they're gobbling up this other series that I write, and they can't wait to meet me the next time I do a signing, and they actually, they love the stories, it makes them laugh, and all that good stuff. That just is the reason why, I do this, is to entertain and to give people smiles and some joy in their life. And sometimes it's scary first and then joy afterwards, but however you want to mix it, just to entertain.
Beautiful. Overcoming writer's block. For those new readers out there who has not got 40 books underneath their belt, how do you overcome writer's block? I mean, I write a blog post, and I get writer's block just doing that. So it's one where help us out a little bit.
Ooh, that's hard. You know, sometimes you just have to deal with the fact that this is blocked. I in the last couple of years, I lost my mom. Had some other troubles with my dad and some other things going on, and it really blocked me because I was struggling to find the joy in my life for a little bit there. But I think the key is just to do a little at a time. Don't stop. And maybe you do have to stop for a short time, but start again and be satisfied with, today I'm going to write 100 words. And they might be total crap on the page, but I'm writing it, and that is forward movement. And maybe I'll just spend the next day editing them, but at least you have something to edit. So when I start feeling stuck, two things. Either I try a little bit, you know, and just set my goals a little lower and do that, or I recognize that, well, maybe I'm blocked because this was not meant to be, you know, the way I'm going is not where I should be going. And even after 40 books now, I can tell you that still happens to me, where I try and try and try, you know, hitting my head against the brick wall, and then I suddenly say, oh, well, duh, you're going in the wrong direction. You should shift it, you know, think of a different way of coming at this, and then it'll flow again. So persistence, you know, just continuing to try and not giving up, and knowing the story's there. You just have to work through whatever is in the way and figure out a path around it.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, our special guest today is Ann Charles. She's 40 books underneath the belt. That's outstanding. What we're talking about today, though, what inspired you to set Chewed Up by the Jungle? How do you set a book up? How is that something you do?
This whole series, the Dig Site series, I have 3 now, and I'll keep building this one as well as the other ones I have going. But this started back a long time ago in college. I took a Mexican history class, and and all the different college classes I've taken, and I've done many because I kept changing colleges, which means you take some of the same classes over. All my classes, this was my all-time favorite. The teacher was great. I didn't expect to enjoy Mexican history. I was majoring in Spanish at the time, and I just thought it would be fun to, you know, here, this is on one of my electives, let's do this and see what, you know, learn a little bit more about Mexico. And it turns out I fell in love, and I fell in love with Mexico overall, but in particular, the Maya, that civilization. I always enjoyed the idea of archaeology, you know, Indiana Jones and all that fun stuff growing up was exciting adventures. And I, at one point, thought, well, maybe I should be an archaeologist, but then it seemed like a whole lot of writing, and I didn't want to write that much. I say now. So going into this, loving this civilization, I started in that class daydreaming about Angélica, the archaeologist that would star in this series, and what she would find and stuff, you know, happening in the jungle. And that was a long time ago, trust me. So I just kept hanging on to that, and I tried my hand with one of my, I think it was my second book, was actually the first book in this series, Look What the Wind Blew In, but it's changed versions from that because I wasn't a very good writer. I was trying to take on something quite major, not just characterization and writing fiction, you know, but also building a scene, a setting in this faraway land with, you know, a few tools that I had. But thankfully, with time and the internet and our abilities to, you know, travel without leaving home sometimes, you can really explore a setting now. And so that's kind of where I started with, you know, all of this. I read and read. I read blogs. I read books. Everything I could. I watched videos to see what this whole area looked like. And then I also learned a ton about Maya civilization, the different, you know, periods, the classic, the post-classic, all that good stuff, the surrounding civilizations, the Olmecs, the Aztecs, how I was going to, you know, I needed all that to know how I was going to build this world, because what I wanted to do was not use real archaeology sites, real places in the Yucatan. I wanted to use fictional archaeological sites that I would create. I would create the history that happened at the site, and then I would let the years, fill it in, let the trees grow, let everything cover part of it up, and then have this crew come in and start digging it back out again and figure out what clues they would find as they try to figure out what happened at each, at the dig site. So I've done this 3 different times now, a different site for each book in that series, and I'll do a new one the next time too. And it just, first of all, I love that. I love watching, all these documentaries on what they're finding, and with LiDAR, which is, they fly over with a plane and now they can see through the jungle canopy. It's just opened the world up so much more with all kinds of possibilities of what's happened down there in the past. And every time I watch a new documentary, they're saying, now we've changed our mind on how this went, and now the Maya, way back when they thought they were peaceful farming people. Now they're like, whoa, these guys had some major wars. There was a lot of, all kinds of excitement going on long before the Spanish came. So
beautiful, beautiful. Dr. Angélica is a fascinating protagonist. Can you share how her background and personal experiences motivated her quest for the novel?
Okay, so her parents were archaeologists. Her mother and her father, they were both Mesoamerican archaeologists, and she grew up in the jungle, when she wasn't back at home in it was Tucson, southern Arizona, where her father was a professor at one of the universities. So she spent a lot of her life down there growing up amongst, the ruins, helping her parents, playing in the temples. So that really formed her young life. And before the start of the first book, Look What the Wind Blew In, her mother has passed away in this tragic accident, a helicopter accident, leaving one of the sites down there. And it's been a few years. It's been like 4 years or so, 5 years. And it's her dad and her now. And she has managed to land this amazing opportunity as a lead archaeologist at a site working for INA. That's the Mexican equivalent, archaeology, government archaeology head. She was hired on to go to different dig sites and check them out, see if they're tourist worthy, because this is a real thing Mexico's doing. They have to decide how much money they want to put into each dig site to make it for the archaeotourism industry, which is huge. So that's the job she's working at. And plus, in the first book, she's trying to figure out a mystery that her mother started, and she's driven by wanting to prove her mother's theory about this one particular site, prove it to the archaeological community that laughed at her, that thought her mother was full of it, And so she's got a really strong motivation to figure out the mystery and know, what happened, and show the world her mother wasn't cuckoo, her mother was right. This is what, the deal was. And her father is there with her as he's part of her crew. He focuses on structural archaeology, so he's really good at saying, let's do this temple, let's work here, let's make this more secure, and then also studying. So put all that together, and you have Angélica at the start of the story, ready to go, ready to find the answers to this mystery. And she's just extremely driven, type A personality with a goal of, proving the woman she loved more than anything was right.
It's just listening to you, research and finding all the backstory is very important to you and very important to your story. What kind of research did you find to authenticate what you did for the book? Because like you said, it's easier now with the internet and stuff like that to do that. Before going to the library and stuff like that. So what else did you do? How does Anne do that and make sure it's a real deal? And she can put that out there to people and say, hey, this is the real deal. How do you do it?
So I do a lot of reading. I spend tons of time. When I watch documentaries online, I'll watch National Geographic. I'll bounce around. There's all kinds of amazing sites that are sponsoring different archaeologists down there. And I will not just focus on one area. I will, just find different parts of the Yucatan and learn about them, and then compare what I learn with this one over here said this site was this, and now this one's saying this. And then I'll get a book and I'll read. I still have my old history, book that started this all, that I'll a lot of times scan back through just because, it was the start of all this, and it just kind of refreshes where I was going. But also I have books on, I'm trying to think, glyphs, reading Maya glyphs. Now, if you're going to create a character that can read glyphs, which is like, the Egyptian hieroglyphic stuff, you really choose wisely, because I had to learn a lot about reading glyphs and how it works. And just, I can't tell you how many hours I've spent just studying and reading and building. And then keep in mind that I create fiction. So my goal is not to be 100% accurate about, for example, Chichen Itza. I might reference and just say, the name in the story, but my goal is to create a site knowing what era of the Maya civilization I was going to use and build it with, the original history and what happened to those people, the kings, the lineage, all that stuff. And then come back in and use current tools and knowledge that we have, non-fiction-wise in the archaeology field, but then switch it and put a layer of fiction onto all of that to make it a story that is mine, not something actually happens. So having that layer of fiction helps a lot in that I can say, well, this happened. Oh, and I also have supernatural. So now I get to add in a layer. I've read a ton, I've researched Maya, their religion and iconography, and now I get to take that and play with it and keep true to their beliefs, but use it, as in, what if the crazy sounding supernatural things they believed in, gods and whatnot, were real? What if they're not telling fiction, and their religion is based on actual beings that were supernatural, that existed then? And so that gives me all kinds of leeway with fun stuff I can do.
Beautiful. At this time, ma'am, tell us where do we go after the show to learn more about you and to buy your books. What do we got?
Ann at AnnCharles.no, that's my email address. You can email me, AnnCharles.com, and there's no E, it's just AnnCharles.com. And if you go there and go to my books, you can start there. I'm on social media, I'm all over the place, so you can always just type in Ann Charles Author and, follow the breadcrumbs there, or read reviews on different retailers, Amazon, Kobo, Nook, all the good, Apple. Read some reviews, see what, and Goodreads too. Yeah. So I'm all over out there.
Beautiful. Chewed Up by the Jungle. How'd you come up with that title?
So Chewed Up by the Jungle. I like to use things like "Look what the wind blew in," "Make no bones about it," kind of sayings, if you will, for this series. And I like the idea of Chewed Up by the Jungle because in this particular book, where previously they were going to dig sites that had been worked at one time by an archaeologist and partially cleared, in this book we are going to an all-new site that has not been visited knowingly by any previous archaeologist. So they are deep down by Calakmul. That is a huge bioreserve, and there are bugs, there are snakes, there are jaguars, you name it, it's down there, and they're fighting every day all these pests and animals and whatnot just to try to get to the site. So I like the idea of chewed up by the jungle because they are getting chewed up. They're taking a beating getting into it, and the jungle is winning. And on top of that, the whole, like I said, supernatural, the whole feeling of the jungle is alive, and that kind of plays into it too. And I just like the play on words, the feeling of chewed up by the jungle. It sounds a little bit scary, a little bit adventurous, it just kind of says, a lot in the title alone for me. So that's why I chose that one. And as for the cover and all the covers, I have the other two here. My cover artist is my brother. He is an artist, and so we've been working together with my series for years. And those are the other two books he also created the artwork for. And so I will come up with an idea. Sometimes I'll find a picture or, something. I'll send him pieces, and then I'll say, this is what I have envisioned for this cover. I want and if you look at Chewed Up, it's a scary tomb, kind of going up into the dark. And then he will create the art for me and send it up. And then my husband takes, because my brother's old school, he uses different kinds of, I can't name the pencils and pens, they have special names, but he uses, we don't use computer to start with. We start with real on the paper art, and then my husband scans it, and he works the graphic art part and creates the cover, working his magic to bring this art to life as a cover. And it's awesome that I get to use my brother's art and have that incorporated into these stories.
That is wonderful. Yeah, keep it in the family. Outstanding. Okay, so you blending adventure, history, and mastery can be challenging for authors. What's some of the nuances you face crafting these narratives?
Well, with the Dig Site series, like I said, I'm in love with the Maya civilization and learning about them. My kids joke that I must have been, one of the Maya people in a previous life, the way and my poor kids, because when I'm writing this series, they're like, don't tell us anything more about the Maya people and, what they went through, please. So, yeah, it starts with my love of the subject. And archaeology, like I said, I thought about doing it years ago. I have always been interested in history and how they go about determining it, what they find, what they can figure out from an object is incredible, how intelligent these people are and work they put into it. So, taking that love, and then I love to tell a story. I love watching, shows that are along this line, and the supernatural part, having, the possibilities of not just human villains, but something else coming up from, the Maya underworld is just makes my brain go, and start putting together ideas. I can tell you for the fourth book, I've already had it churning, even though I finished a book in a different series. That's for my Jackrabbit series, is the one I just did. And I'll be working on 2 other series before I get back to this. But I already know what I'm going to do. I went down there over the December. I saw some of the various temples, and some ideas popped in my head, and a particular god that's not much is known about. And I've already started formulating ideas of how we're going to find out more about this and what I'm going to create, about this god and the purpose in their whole, culture and religion. So it's just, there's a lot that goes into this series.
Okay, so your husband, you got kids. When do you write? When is your downtime? Are you an early morning person, afternoon person, night person when the kids go to bed, or something like that?
So let me start okay, like I said, I've been doing this 20 plus years.
Yeah.
I started before I was even married or had kids. I was dabbling in fiction, but I always worked. I was going to college, I was working, because of course I didn't make enough money until I'd been doing this a while. So as time went on, I was writing, I was working, then I got married, and I had kids, and it was around 2007 when I had my second kid, my daughter, my last child, and I told my husband, I'm going to really get serious about this fiction writing now. Before then, it was just kind of, I was trying, but I wasn't really, my heart wasn't in it. Marketing, I wasn't in it. And he said, what does that mean? And I said, I don't know, but we're going to dig in now, and I'm going to make this happen, because I want to be able to spend time with my children more, go to their school functions, not have this day job that's interfering with my home life. And he was, at the time, he was home with the kids. He had been laid off right before we had him, so he stayed home so that, we had our family unit that way. So I would go to work, from 8 to 5. I would come home, spend a few hours until the kids, they were babies then, went to sleep. And then I would stay up till about 2 in the morning, and I would work from probably around 9 to 2. I just worked. And then throughout the day, when I had breaks, when I had anything, I worked on writing. I was constantly working on creating story or building, the marketing world for Aunt Charles. And on the weekends, it was just nonstop work for writing. And I did this for years, where I was working 8 hours, come home, spend a few with the family until they went to bed, work till 2 in the morning, go to sleep, wake up at 7:30, get back to work right away. And it was exhausting, but I was young. I could pull it off then. Now, not so much. So we made it to the point when financially, because of the books, we were doing well enough that I could quit that day job and start focusing 100% on writing as a business, and that was it. And it was exciting, and it was really scary, because it's a different world. You dream about being a writer, right? And this is what you do. But when you're actually, I have to write the next book because we need, money requires that, it feels a little bit different. And I just kind of moved through that and went, okay, we're going to do this anyway. We'll pretend, this isn't, all the cards aren't here. We're just going to keep going as we were. And I dug in. And it has been since 2013 since I did that. So still going. My kids are older now. And when they were younger, I still wrote when they slept. I still, when they were in school, I was writing. You just make any time that you have extra work for writing. You just have to, if this is what you want to do. Now, I wake up, I do some things early in the morning when my brain's fresh, then I have coffee and breakfast, and then I get to work, and I stop around 6, and I go in and then hang with the family. And sometimes I do marketing from the couch, but my writing hours are between 10 and 6 now. So that's kind of the way it works. And it'll keep shifting, I know, as they move away. They're in college now, but they're staying at home going to college, so I still see them all the time.
That's outstanding. Very inspiring, especially the true writers like yourself who's doing it full time. What's your thoughts?
Boy, Hattie, that's tough. I'm one of those authors that are in the Anthropic case. I don't know if you've heard of that. I had 16 books that were taken, from the pirating site and used to help create Claude, that particular AI language. And I will continue to write my own stories. I know authors that use it for helping with brainstorming and stuff, and that's cool. I get that. I use other people to help me brainstorm. But for me, there's not the fun of part of the fun of the storytelling thing is I don't know what's going to happen in a chapter or two from now. I have an outline that I'm trying to follow, but I really want the story to be organic and to create, its own world as it goes and its own situations, and that's how my brain works. So I know authors can use it and write stories faster, and to each their own, but I will continue to just do my usual thing and tell the stories my way. I do like to use it for a few marketing things, coming up with some quick graphics, because my art, my brother's the artist, I am not. I can barely draw stick people, and I'm not kidding. So it can be useful in setting processes too for your writing and things like that, which I know a lot of authors do, and it's wonderful. But yeah, I don't know, but I will tell you this little tidbit. I tried to help my daughter with a paper one time in the last year, since this whole Claude, and they've used it, some of my books, and everything I write for her, and I'm telling you, I write it from scratch. I don't, use AI. I just write paragraphs or whatever. She runs it through an AI checker, which teachers do nowadays, and I am flagged every time for AI, and it makes me mad, because it's like, AI took from me, not me from it. Of course I'm going to sound like AI, because I started, my books were some of the brains behind, the language, and it's just really frustrating, because I'm like, can't go to college anymore. I can't write papers that aren't AI sounding, I guess.
That is wild. Oh, thanks for sharing that, Ann. Special guest today is Ann Charles. As you hear, writer, career, 40 books deep. Outstanding things. Have you thought about putting any of your stuff, your work, on TV? Hulu? Because they're always looking for content like yours.
Oh, man. Wouldn't that be fun? That would be incredible. I I daydream about it often, but have I made any move toward doing that? Not yet, no.
Gotcha.
I have some friends that have switched from writing novels to screenplays, and they're doing relatively well, and so I always think someday I'm going to, sit and talk to them and see what's going on, but that's a whole new shark-infested pool there, and protecting rights and everything that goes into that. Plus, there's a lot of learning to just do it the right way, to go into that without, all the troubles that could come your way. So I daydream about it. I haven't done anything about it. I haven't sought out representation or anything like that for that. But it would be fun, I think, to
keep us in mind, because we do have channels, the Hollis Chapman Show on Roku. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So we
that
do have
would be
that,
cool.
and we're always looking for people like yourself. Your series would be outstanding. They really would. But like you said, though, the screenwriting stuff is tough. So keep that in mind. The Hollis Chapman Show can get you on Roku.
Exciting, and I feel like that's something in the future that I can look at taking these stories, because a lot of them I could make them timeless. It could take a little into the future a little bit, and then here's the story, and put it out there. The series that we could have all kinds of episodes about. But yeah, it's a future thing for me. Not that I'm against it. It's just I'm trying to stay on the horse right now as best I can.
I understand. Hey, before we get to the final comment, tell us again, where do we go to learn more about you and buy your books? AnnCharles.com.
Just put my name together and add a .com, and you can get to my website, and from there you can find the books page. I have a blog page, but it really is just updates in my newsletters. So I'm online on Facebook, Instagram, all the different social media I dabble in. And YouTube, I have a YouTube channel where I check in, and I want to start sharing more audiobooks on there for everybody, and doing some more readings on there. So just go online, and whichever flavor of social media you like, look for me, look for Ann Charles.
Outstanding. Final comment. What over message do you have readers to take away from this, from Chewed Up the Jungle, in closing?
Well, with this book in particular, they're going to into the absolute unknown, and they're deciding if this site should be developed. So we start with that. And by the end, I can't tell you what happens at the end, but they have persevered through all kinds of struggles, and still treat the site with respect, knowing they are just visitors, and that's what we all are to history, as visitors, and enjoying what it is. So I guess the takeaway from this is a lot to do with, again, perseverance. They don't give up. They keep going when everything is falling on their heads type of thing. They just keep going and pushing and getting through. And I think that's important in life, because if you have the perfect life and you have no strife, I don't want to know about it, because for one thing, that's not my life, and for another, I write fiction, and if fiction has everything perfect, there's no fun to it. So I think we all have troubles, big or small, and if you just keep pushing and find the joy, but then be respectful of those you come across, and mix all that together, and when you finish this story, I hope you kind of feel that, and you love the characters, and you had a wonderful, fun time in the jungle, and you want to go learn more about the Maya and check out their sites for yourself.
Beautiful. Ann Charles, everybody. Let's give it a little clap here. Thank you so much, Ann. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay dry and Prescott.
Yes.
And we'll talk to you real soon. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for ringing. Appreciate you. Awesome.
And small business owners, turn your book and or your business into a streaming television brand. You wrote the book, you built the business. Now it's time to be seen on Roku and Amazon Fire Television. The Hollis Chapman Show helps authors and small business owners get featured on a professionally produced TV show, appear on Roku and Amazon Fire Television streaming platforms, build authority and credibility, reach new audiences beyond social media, receive in-house marketing support. This isn't just an interview. This is brand positioning. If you're serious about in 2026, let's put your brand on television. Appy now for a featured television plus podcast spotlight.
Book your strategy email today.
Thank you, Anne. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.